The night was calm at our university. Most students were either in their dorms or at the library cramming for finals. Few noticed the silent figure of the campus security guard, Robert Haynes, as he made his rounds. Robert Haynes, or Bobby, as he was known to the students, was a familiar sight on campus. He had been working at Crestwood for nearly a decade, always there with a friendly smile and a helpful hand. But beneath that genial exterior lay a dark, twisted soul. Sophomore journalism major Emily Parker had always felt a bit uneasy around Bobby. There was something about his eyes, the way they seemed to linger a bit too long, that made her skin crawl. Still, she never imagined that her intuition would turn into a nightmare. It started innocuously enough. Bobby seemed to be everywhere Emily went. He was at the coffee shop when she grabbed her morning latte, at the library when she studied late into the night, and even in the background of campus events she attended. At first, she dismissed it as coincidence, but soon it became clear that it was anything but. One evening, as Emily walked back to her dorm from a study group, she felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand on end. She glanced over her shoulder and saw Bobby a short distance behind her. He smiled and waved, but there was something predatory in his gaze. She quickened her pace, heart pounding, and reached the safety of her dorm, but the feeling of being watched lingered. Emily decided to confide in her best friend, Sarah. "I don't know, maybe I'm overreacting, but Bobby, the security guard, he's been following me everywhere," she said, her voice tinged with fear. Sarah frowned. "That's creepy. Maybe you should report it." "I thought about it, but what if it's just my imagination? I don't want to cause trouble for nothing," Emily replied, unsure. Days turned into weeks, and Bobby's presence became more intrusive. He left small gifts for Emily, flowers, chocolates, even a stuffed animal with a note that simply read, "For Emily." She threw them all away, her discomfort growing with each unwanted gesture. One night, unable to sleep, Emily decided to work on an article for the school paper. She headed to the journalism building where she felt most at ease. As she typed away, the building's lights flickered. She heard a faint noise like footsteps echoing in the empty hallway. Her heart raced, and she stood to check it out, clutching her phone tightly. "Bobby," she called out, her voice echoing in the silence. There was no response. She shook her head, trying to dismiss her paranoia, and returned to her work. But the sense of unease was overwhelming. She packed up her things and decided to head back to her dorm. As she stepped into the hallway, she froze. Bobby stood at the end, his eyes glinting in the dim light. "Working late, Emily?" he asked, his voice unnervingly calm. "Yeah, just finishing up," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "I should get going." Bobby took a step closer. "Let me walk you back. It's not safe out here at night." Emily's mind raced. "No, it's fine. I can manage. I insist," Bobby said, his tone leaving no room for argument. She had no choice but to let him accompany her. As they walked, Bobby started talking about his life, his past. He spoke of childhood memories and old jobs, but there was an underlying darkness in his words. Emily listened, her fear mounting with every step. When they reached her dorm, she turned to him. "Thanks for walking me back." "Good night, Bobby." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Good night, Emily. Sleep well." She hurried inside and locked the door behind her, her heart racing. She knew she had to do something. The next morning, she went to the campus security office to file a report. The officer on duty listened, but there was skepticism in his eyes. "Bobby's been with us for years. He's one of our best," the officer said. "Are you sure you're not just misinterpreting his actions?" Emily's frustration grew. "He's stalking me. I'm not making this up." "We'll look into it," the officer promised. But Emily left feeling unheard and vulnerable. That night, as she lay in bed, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You shouldn't have done that," it read. Her blood ran cold. She knew it was Bobby. Panic set in. Emily decided to dig into Bobby's past. She spent hours researching, finding only fragments of his history, but the pieces she found were disturbing. A former job at a small-town security firm abruptly left after a series of unsolved disappearances. Rumors of a dark past, whispers of a man who had once been suspected in a string of murders, but never charged. Emily realized she was in grave danger. She needed evidence, something concrete to prove Bobby's guilt. She decided to lure him out to confront him and gather proof. She sent a text to the unknown number. "Meet me in the journalism building. We need to talk." She hoped her plan would work. Armed with a hidden voice recorder and a small canister of pepper spray, Emily headed to the journalism building. She waited in the shadows, heart pounding. The door creaked open, and Bobby stepped inside, his expression a mix of curiosity and anger. "Emily, what's this about?" he asked, stepping closer. She steeled herself. "I know about your past, Bobby, the disappearances, the rumors. I know you're dangerous." His eyes darkened. "You shouldn't have dug into my past, Emily. Now you have to pay." He lunged at her, but she was ready. She sprayed the pepper spray into his eyes and bolted for the door. Bobby screamed in pain, but his rage fueled him. He chased her through the dark hallways, but Emily had planned her escape route. She led him into a trap. As Bobby stumbled blindly, she tripped him, causing him to fall and hit his head on a desk. Dazed, he struggled to get up, but Emily was already calling the police, her voice shaking. The authorities arrived quickly, arresting Bobby and uncovering his horrific secrets. Hidden in his apartment were trophies from his victims, grisly mementos of his crimes. He was a predator, hiding in plain sight, finally brought to justice.
The Halloween party at the Sigma Beta fraternity house was in full swing, and the air was electric with excitement and the chill of the October night. Costume students filled the rooms, laughing and dancing under strobe lights. In the basement, however, a group of fraternity brothers was planning their annual prank, one that had grown increasingly elaborate and dangerous each year. This year, they had decided to take it up a notch. "Are you sure about this, Travis?" asked Dylan, the chapter president, looking uneasy. "Relax, Dylan," Travis replied, adjusting his vampire cape. "It's just a scare. No one's gonna get hurt." The target of their prank was Luke, a quiet, bookish freshman pledging the fraternity. Travis had set up a series of fake blood packs and props in the old, unused attic of the house. The plan was to lure Luke up there and scare him witless. As the clock struck midnight, Travis signaled the others to bring Luke upstairs. Luke, dressed as a pirate, followed them with a hesitant smile, clearly trying to fit in. The group climbed the narrow stairs to the attic, their flashlights casting eerie shadows on the walls. When they reached the top, Travis flipped a switch, and the room was suddenly bathed in a blood-red glow. "Welcome to your final test, Luke," Travis announced dramatically. "Survive the night up here, and you're in." Luke's eyes widened with a mix of fear and determination. "I can do it," he said, trying to sound braver than he felt. The fraternity brothers retreated downstairs, laughing and congratulating themselves on another successful prank. But as the party continued, an ear-piercing scream echoed from the attic. Everyone froze. Dylan and Travis exchanged worried looks before rushing upstairs, the rest of the partygoers close behind. They found Luke lying motionless on the floor, a pool of blood spreading around him. Panic erupted. "Is this part of the prank?" someone shouted, but the terror in Travis's eyes said otherwise. He knelt beside Luke, shaking him, but there was no response. "We have to call 911 now." The police arrived quickly and the party was shut down. Luke was pronounced dead at the scene, his neck broken in what appeared to be a freak accident. The shock and guilt were overwhelming. The fraternity members were questioned, and the incident was ruled an unfortunate accident. But the whispers on campus told a different story, one of a prank gone horribly wrong and a soul lost too soon. A year passed, and the fraternity struggled to move on. The members who had been involved in the prank carried a heavy burden of guilt, their friendship strained by the shared secret. As Halloween approached again, the tension among them grew palpable. On the night of the anniversary, the Sigma Beta house was eerily quiet. The decision had been made to forego the usual party out of respect for Luke. Instead, the brothers gathered in the living room, trying to distract themselves with movies and pizza. But the atmosphere was thick with unspoken fear. At midnight, the lights flickered and then went out. A cold draft swept through the house, sending chills down their spines. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps echoed from the attic. The brothers exchanged nervous glances, remembering the events of the previous year. "We should check it out," Travis said, though his voice lacked its usual confidence. The others reluctantly agreed, and they made their way up the stairs, flashlights in hand. The attic door creaked open and they stepped inside, their flashlights casting long, eerie shadows. The room looked exactly as it had a year ago, except now it felt colder, more foreboding. As they moved further in, the door slammed shut behind them. Panic set in. "Who's there?" Dylan called out, his voice trembling. There was no answer, just the sound of their own ragged breathing. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the darkness, dressed in a blood-stained pirate costume. It was Luke, or rather, it looked like Luke. His eyes were empty, lifeless. The brothers screamed and backed away, but the figure advanced slowly, methodically. "You did this to me," the ghostly figure said, his voice a chilling whisper. "You need to pay." Travis stumbled, falling to the floor. "We're sorry, Luke. It was an accident." The ghost of Luke seemed to grow taller, more menacing.
"An accident," he hissed. "You laughed while I died. Now you'll feel my pain."
One by one, the lights on their flashlights died, plunging them into darkness. The cold intensified, and they felt an invisible force constricting their chests, making it hard to breathe. They clawed at their throats, gasping for air. In the suffocating darkness, Travis's mind raced. He remembered the journal he had found in Luke's room after his death, filled with stories of the supernatural. Desperate, he shouted, "Luke, we were wrong! We're sorry! Please, forgive us!" The pressure eased slightly, and the ghostly figure paused.
"Forgiveness?"
Luke's voice echoed.
"You must earn it."
The attic filled with whispers, memories of the prank flashing before their eyes. Tears streamed down their faces as they relived the horror of that night. The ghost of Luke seemed to watch them, judging. Finally, the pressure lifted, and the lights flickered back on. Luke's ghost was gone, and the attic door creaked open. The brothers scrambled out, their faces pale and haunted. They never spoke of that night again, but the experience changed them. They disbanded the fraternity and dedicated themselves to honoring Luke's memory, establishing a scholarship in his name. The campus slowly forgot the tale of the tragic prank, but those who had been there knew the truth. The ghost of Luke had given them a chance to atone, and they vowed never to forget the final fright that had nearly cost them their lives.
Homecoming weekend had always been a time of celebration at our university, but this year, the excitement was overshadowed by a growing sense of dread. Kelly Brooks, a transfer student and aspiring journalist, had heard the whispers. A decade ago, a tragic fire at the Sigma Delta house claimed the lives of 5 students. The official story was an accidental blaze, but rumors of foul play persisted. The survivors, now alumni, were returning for a special memorial, but someone else had returned as well, someone with a vendetta. The first body was found on Friday night. Jenny Harris, a former Sigma Delta sister, was discovered in her hotel room, throat slashed. The police were tight-lipped, but Kelly's sources confirmed the grisly details. The news sent shockwaves through the campus, but the homecoming festivities continued, albeit under a cloud of fear. Kelly's investigative instincts kicked in. She needed to know more. She reached out to Tyler Reynolds, the editor of the campus newspaper, the Crestwood Chronicle. Tyler was skeptical, but agreed to help. They spent Saturday interviewing alumni and students. piecing together fragments of the past. "Do you really think it's connected to the fire?" Tyler asked as they sat in Kelly's cramped dorm room, surrounded by notes and photographs. "I do," Kelly replied, her eyes scanning a faded yearbook. "Look at this. All the victims were connected to Sigma Delta. And there's this." She pointed to a grainy photo of a student, his face partially obscured by shadows. "This is Mark Thompson. He was expelled just before the fire. They said he was unstable, but no one ever found him." As dusk fell, the campus was eerily quiet. Kelly and Tyler made their way to the old Sigma Delta house, now abandoned and boarded up. They slipped through a broken window and into the dark, musty interior. The air was thick with dust and the scent of decay. They moved cautiously, flashlights cutting through the darkness. "Kelly, over here," Tyler whispered. He had found a door leading to the basement. They descended the creaking stairs, their breaths visible in the cold, damp air. At the bottom, they found a makeshift shrine. Photos of the fire's victims, candles, and a journal lay scattered across a table. Kelly picked up the journal and began to read. It was filled with Mark's ramblings, detailing his hatred for the Sigma Delta members and his plans for revenge. "He's been planning this for years," Kelly said, her voice trembling. "We need to warn the others." Suddenly, a noise echoed through the basement. Footsteps. They turned to see a figure emerging from the shadows wearing a mask and holding a knife. It was Mark. "You shouldn't have come here," he growled. "They all deserve to die, and so do you." Kelly and Tyler backed away, but there was nowhere to go. Mark lunged at them, the knife glinting in the dim light. Kelly grabbed a nearby chair and swung it, connecting with Mark's arm. He stumbled, giving them a chance to run. They raced up the stairs and through the house, Mark close behind. As they burst out into the night, Kelly fumbled for her phone. She managed to dial 911 before Mark tackled her to the ground. The phone skidded away, the call connecting. Tyler tried to pull Mark off Kelly, but he was too strong. Mark raised the knife, ready to strike, when the sound of sirens filled the air. Mark hesitated, and in that moment, Kelly kicked him hard in the stomach. He doubled over, gasping for breath. Police cars screeched to a halt, officers spilling out and rushing toward them. Mark made one last attempt to flee, but it was too late. The officers tackled him, the knife clattering to the ground. Kelly and Tyler collapsed, exhausted and shaking. As they sat in the back of an ambulance, wrapped in blankets, Kelly looked at Tyler. "We did it. We stopped him," Tyler nodded. "Yeah, but at what cost? So many people died because of him." Kelly sighed. "True, but maybe now their families can finally get some closure." The news of Mark's arrest spread quickly, and the campus began to return to a semblance of normalcy. The homecoming events continued, though with a somber tone. Kelly wrote an article for the Crestwood Chronicle detailing their investigation and the harrowing night at the Sigma Delta house. It was her first big story, and it earned her respect and recognition. But as she looked out over the campus from her dorm window, she couldn't shake the feeling that the past was never truly gone. It lingered in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to reemerge. For now, though, Crestwood University could breathe a little easier, knowing that one chapter of its dark history had come to an end.